Hey there, how's it going everyone? In this video, we're going to be looking at class methods. Now, class methods, as it sounds, are methods that we run on the class itself. These methods are not run on the instances of the class as we've been seeing in the previous examples. In this case, we want to run methods on the class itself to return a class object or to be able to create our own factory methods as we're going to see in this example. So I'm going to carry on with the example of the class employee as we created in the various examples we've been working on. So to do that, I'm going to create a class. So I'm going to create a class of employee still. So in this case, I'm going to add an attribute that is specific to the class itself, not the instance of that class. And that is going to be the salary. So I'm going to say, I'm going to add the salary. And then let me say the salary in this case is going to be 200,000. After doing that, I may create a function which is going to return this salary. So I'm going to create a simple function which is going to say get salary. And then what I'll pass in is the class that we need to call this method on. And what this will do is to just say return class dot salary. Now in this case, we have a simple method that passes in the class and then returns the class's salary. But this is not a class method. For us to make this a class method, we'll have to use a special function that is inbuilt within Python that converts a function to a class method. So that function is called the class method function. So it's called the class method function. So it's called class method. Now when we run this class method and we decorate a function in this class method function, we make it a class method. So let's see that in action. I'm going to remove this, and then what I'll have to do is simply to call employee dot get salary, and then I say is equal to class method. Then I pass in the function I'd like to make a class method. So even when we see here, we see it converts a function to a class method. So what you're going to do is to just pass in employee dot get salary, and after passing this in, it's going to convert this to a class method. So let's try to call this function. So I'll just print employee dot get salary, and when I save this, I'm going to come and run this example with Python class methods dot py, and this is going to return our salary. Now converting a function to a class method using this method is kind of tricky. However, we can just use what we call decorators to make this function a class method. So instead of doing all this, what we can actually do is to remove this statement, and we shall decorate this function with at class method. And this is just enough to make this method a class method. So when I save this, what we're going to actually do is to then run the file. So I'm going to run the file by saying Python class methods .py, and this is going to return the same result. So another example in which we may use class methods is when we are creating our own custom factory functions such as the init method. So we may want to create a function that we may want to create objects following our own steps. So in this case, we shall use class methods. So let's try to look at an example that uses such a kind of working. I'm going to go to our class employee, and I'm going to remove this for now. So let's remove this. In this case, I'm going to create a simple init function or the initializer function. And when I create this initializer function, it's going to describe whatever attributes that we may want for our class. So I'm going to say def init, and this init function is going to take in self. Let's say it takes in a name and an age. So we may say self dot age. That means the age of that object is going to be the age that we pass in as an argument. Then we also say self dot name is going to be equal to the name that we pass in as an argument when creating that object. So after that, we may also want to create our own class method that helps us to display info for the age of this particular employee. So we may say def display. We may call it a simple display info function. So it works on the object of that class. then what it returns, it will return an F string. So in this case, it will return an F string, and that F string is going to be the name. So we can say name. We can actually say name and then pass in the name. So we can say self dot name, and we can also pass in the age. So we can say age, and the age is equal to self dot age. Now, what if we wanted to create an employee, but we want to create them from their birth year, not their age specifically? This calls for us to create a factory function that helps us to do that. So we're going to create a factory function that's going to enable us to create an employee with an age derived from their birth year. So to do this, we shall say at class method, and then we pass in the function. So in this case, we're going to say def uh, from birth year. So we're going to just say from birth year. So I'm going to call this function from birth year. So what this function is going to do is to create an employee with an age derived from their birth year. So to do this, we're going to pass in the class itself, which is employee. So we're going to pass in the class, the first argument, and then we're going to pass in the name of the employee, and then we're going to also pass in the birth year of that employee. So we shall say birth year. After doing this, we shall need to import date. So I'm going to go to the top of my code and I import. Actually, what I'm going to do is say from date time import date. So what we need this object for is to be able to access the date today and the year in which we are in today. So to do that, I'm going to come right here, and all this function is going to do is to return an object of this class with a name that we pass in as an argument and a birth and an age derived from the birth year of this object. So to do that, I'm going to just say return, and what we're going to do is to just return an object. So I'll say class, then I pass in the name that you want to pass in. So I may say name is equal to name. So we're creating a new object with a name equals to the name that we passed in as an argument. Then you also say that we want the age to be equal to. So I'm going to just write a simple computation here, and what we want to do first is to access the date today. So I'll say date dot today. I call the today function, and this returns a date from time dot time, as you see. So we're also going to access the year in this case. So when you access the year, it's going to return the current year in which you are in. So the next thing we have to do is to subtract the birth year from the current birth date so that we get the age of that particular employee. So to do that, I'm going to just subtract minus birth year, and this is going to give us the age of that particular employee. So what you're going to do in this case is to create these objects, and you're going to see how these objects are going to be created. So first, we are going to create a simple employee object. So let me call that employee one. Employee one is going to be an employee created normally by passing in a name. So the name, let's say the name is Jonathan, and then we may pass in the age as, let's say, 23. So we may also create another object that we're going to create from the birth year instead of the age. So to do that, we are going to call the get the from birth year function that we created as our class method. I'm going to say emp2 going to be employee, and we are going to say dot birth year, then we pass in the name of that particular employee. So we may say name is going to be equal to, let's say, Jerry, and the birth year in this case, we may say that we want to pass in a birth year equals to, let's say, 1985. So when we do this, what we're going to actually do is to display the info for both of the objects we created. So we may call the display info method that we created that's going to return the name and the age of that particular object. So we are going to run this. So we're going to say employee one dot display info, and we're also going to say, actually, let me print this because they are return statements. They won't show any output in the console. So I'm going to print and also print the one for employee. So I'm going to say print employee2 dot display info. And after saving this, we are going to actually run our file. So we need to come to the terminal and I say Python class methods dot py. So we are having this, so it's get salary. So let's see where the problem is. um let's see where the problem is. It's line 27. Oh, we forgot to remove this line, so let me remove that line. I'm going to run again, and you see that now it's returning our information as we described in the display info method. If you like this video, please leave a like, and also don't forget to subscribe to my channel for new content like this. Thank you for watching and see you in the next video. Bye.